Hi students, my name is Pannika and I'm a social studies educator at Study Room. Today we are going to learn about a different topic, that is secularism. In order to understand this topic, let's directly dive into the chapter Understanding Secularism. All right. So the topics that we will cover under this topic in this chapter, we will answer the questions that have been mentioned on the screen. The very first question is: do the rules in our country differ based on religion? Does India have an official or state religion? Do you know some countries that have an official religion or state religion? So all the topics that we are going to cover in this chapter will answer the questions that have been mentioned. So moving forward to the very first slide of this chapter and the very first topic, which is what is secularism. So, as we have read in the previous chapter, the Indian Constitution, I might wonder that you might know a very slight glimpse of what is secularism. In the simple terms, secularism means when a state, a country, does not support any one particular religion. That means that all the religions are equal according to the law in the eyes of the state. All the religions are equal. That means that they are given, all the religious communities, be it Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Sai, majority, minority religious communities, each and every religious communities are given equal rights to promote and propagate their religious practices. Now, let me explain you this in a very simple language through an example. Okay, so for example, we all know that Hindus basically show a sense of dedication towards God by doing havans or applying tika on their forehead, whereas Muslims read namaz on Friday evenings. So here, the state does not stop any of the religious communities to promote their religion or to follow their religious practices, right? Here, all the religions are given the right to follow and promote their own religious practices. State is not stopping any of them to not apply tika or to not read namaz on the Friday evenings. Each and every religion is given equal rights to promote and follow their religious communities, and that is why India is a secular state, because India basically provides equal rights to all the religious communities, and this makes India a secular country. So I hope you understand what is secularism in a very simple term. Basically, when a country does not promote any one particular religion, it promotes all the religion. It gives equal rights to all the religion. Now let's understand what would happen if a country would promote any one religion. So for instance, as I gave you the example of the Hindu, as Hindus show their sense of dedication toward God by doing havans or pujas or applying tika on their forehead. So, in case that the state, let's assume that the state support Hindu religion, right? It promotes only Hindu religion in the country. So, if this would be the case in India, then there might be a possibility that the political leaders of India might force all the citizens of the country to only follow this religion, right? Or there could be also a possibility that they would stop the practices of the other religious communities, like Muslims. Like Muslims could be stopped to practice namaz, could be stopped to read namaz in the Friday evenings, and that could lead to a lot of discrimination and ill treatment towards the other religious communities. So this happens in a non-secular state. So this would happen in an absence of secularism. There would be a lot of discrimination and ill treatment among the other religious communities. But India is a secular state which gives equal rights to all the religious communities, and secularism is very important for a country to function democratically. Now, what do we mean by to function democratically? As we have studied in the chapter Indian Constitution, we know that in order to function a country democratic, we have given our citizens some fundamental rights, right? And one of the most important fundamental rights are the right to equality and the right to follow any religion that they want to. But in case of secularism, for instance, that there is a country where there is no secularism, a state only promote any one particular religion. So as I told you that in this case, there could be discrimination and ill treatment towards other religious communities. The state could force the citizens to only follow the religion that they are supporting and that only they are promoting. So this could happen. Now in this case, the right to follow any religion that the citizens want to is basically getting violated, and the right to equal rights to all the religious communities is also getting violated. So secularism basically provides right to equality and right to follow any religion to the citizens of the country, and therefore we can say that secularism is very important for a country to function democratically. So let's understand secularism through some examples. Okay, all right. So the first example is Jews were persecuted in Hitler's Germany and millions were killed. So what do we mean by this? So basically in Germany, Hitler used to support only one religion, that was German. Okay, only one kind of religious community, that was Germans. And the other minority religious communities like the Jews were discriminated. They were being ill-treated by the Hitler because Hitler used to only promote Germans. So this was the case. This happens when there is an absence of secularism in the country. And in fact, they were ill-treated to a level that they were being even killed. So what happened was, when they were being ill-treated, now they made their own country, which was known as Israel. And in Israel, Jews were in majority, whereas Christians and Muslims were in minority. So what they did was, they treated the minority religious community in the country the same way that they were being treated in Germany. They ill-treated Muslims and Christians. They discriminated amongst them because they only supported the Jews. So they did the same treatment as they were being treated in Germany. They did the same to the other minority religious community in their country. All right. The third example says that in Saudi Arabia, non-Muslims are not allowed to build a temple, church, etc., nor are they allowed to gather in a public place or prayers. So as I told you that when a state supports only one particular religion, promotes only one particular religion, it might not give equal rights to the other religious community, and the same happened in Saudi Arabia. So basically in Saudi Arabia, Muslims are in majority, whereas the other religious communities are in minority. So in Saudi Arabia, the state does not support or promote each and every religion. It basically promotes only one religion, and it does not give equal rights to all the religion. And so it basically doesn't allow the Christians to gather in a public place or pray together in a public place. So here there are no equal rights that are given to all the religious communities. There is a discrimination amongst the religious communities, right? Okay, so moving on to the next slide, as of now, we've understood what is secularism, and we've understood secularism through some examples that what happens when there is an absence of secularism. All right, so let's now understand that why is it important to separate the religion from the state. That is why secularism is important. So basically, we understood that when there is an absence of secularism, the other religious communities are being discriminated, they are being ill-treated, and so on and so forth. But let's just understand it thoroughly as to why secularism is important in a country. So as we understood in the previous examples, that in case there is an absence of secularism, the other religious communities are discriminated, they are not given equal rights, they are even ill-treated to a level that they are being killed. So why does this basically happen? So when a state does support or promote any one religion, so that religious communities basically comes in power. It can misuse the state powers to dominate the other minority religious communities, which could hinder their interest, which could, create a lot of chaos in the country, which could not live them peacefully, which can also go to a level where they could be killed. So that happens when there is an absence of secularism. That happens when the state does promote only one religion, does support and propagate only one religion. That religious communities comes in state power, has the power, and sometimes it uses the state power to dominate the other minority religious communities, as we saw in the previous examples. The second reason why secularism is important is, as I told you, that there are some fundamental rights in the country, right to equality and right to follow any religion that we wish to. So if there is secularism, there is a possibility that the state could force the citizens of the country to follow the religion that they are supporting and promoting, right? So there could be a possibility, and this does happen. State sometimes force the citizens of the country to follow the religion that they are promoting, and there is a threat that if in case that they doesn't promote the religion that they are supporting, they would kill them. So this basically over here violates the fundamental right of the right to follow any religion. So secularism is very important in order to not violate this fundamental right, and so to safeguard the right of the people to exert and entry in any religion that they want to. For example, I'll just explain you with an example, a very basic example, that since we know that there is a diverse set of culture in India, there are Hindus and there are Muslims, so there might be a possibility that a person is born in a Hindu family but might want to change his religion because he finds the um, traditions and cultures of the other religion better suited from him, right? But if in case there is an absence of secularism, if the state promotes only the Hindu religion, then it wouldn't allow the person to follow or change his religion to Buddhism. Since it only promotes Hindu religion in the country, it wouldn't allow that citizen to change. So here the fundamental right to follow any religion is highly violated, right? So in order to function a country democratically, secularism is very important. Otherwise, the basic fundamental right will be violated. All right. So these are the two main reasons why secularism is in a country is very important. All right. Moving on. Okay, so here's a brief explanation of what is Indian secularism. So as of now, we have understood that what is secularism, why is it important. We have understood secularism through some basic examples also, and I'm sure that you might have understood what is secularism by now. So we'll understand that what makes a country secular. Right, we have now understood what happens when it is not secular or what is secularism. So now we will understand that what makes a country secular, what makes India a secular state. All right, so basically there are some measures that have to be followed in order to ensure that a country is a secular state. All right, so first one is that one religious community does not dominate another, that some members do not dominate the other members of the same religious community. So basically there are two measures that have to be followed in order to ensure that a country is a secular state. All right, that one of the measures is that one religious community does not dominate the other religious community, as we understood in the previous examples, that if there is secularism, if the state promotes only one religious community, sometimes that religious community or even the state dominates the other religious communities, right? They discriminate, they ill-treat them. So in order to make a country secular, this should not happen. Each and every religious community should be given equal rights, and no religious community should be discriminated. No religious community should be ill-treated at the expense of the other religious community. I hope you understand. Moving on to the next point, that if all the religious communities are given equal rights and there is no such discrimination among the religious community, the next point says that a country is not called as a secular state if the members of one religious community dominates the member of the same religious communities. So let me explain you this by an example. As we all know that there is not one type of Hindu. There are many types of Hindus. There are different variety of Hindus. And so there are Hindus who are very rich. There are Hindus who are very poor, basically the upper caste and the lower caste. So basically there could be a possibility that the upper caste, the Hindu upper caste, could dominate the Hindus that belong to the lower caste. So if this happens in the country, still the country is not a secular state. So both the measures are to be ensured that one religious community does not dominate the other religious community, and the members of one religious community does not dominate the other members of the same religious community. All right, and that the state does not enforce any particular religion nor take away the religious freedom of any individual to make it a secular state. All right, so since we now know that the two measures are to be followed in order to make India a secular state or any other country a secular state, now how do we actually manage to make these measures ensure? We will understand that the government basically takes some steps in order to make sure that the measures are being followed. Now there are basically three steps that the government has taken in order to ensure that the measures are being followed properly. One of the steps is the distancing itself from religion. The second is strategy of interference, the strategy of non-interference, and the third is strategy of intervention. So we'll understand each of the step thoroughly. So, all right. So the very first step that has been taken by the government in order to ensure that India is a secular state, that is distancing itself from religion. So let's understand through a very simple example. Now, for example, You might have noticed that in any government space like government schools or government colleges or any government space like police stations or supreme courts or high courts, you might have noticed that there is no such one particular religion that is promoted or displayed. Like there is no such one symbol of one particular religion that is displayed in any of the government spaces. This basically depicts that the government state does not support any one particular religion. All the religions in the eyes of the state are equal, and all of them are given equal rights, and all of them are equally promoted. In fact, you will see that there are pictures of the national leaders which basically belong to all the all the religious communities, no matter it is Muslims or Hindu, majority or minority. So this basically shows that the government does not promote any one particular religion. In fact, all the religions are equal for the state. So this is how distance itself from the religion. So the second point is the strategy of the non-interference. So we'll understand this also through a very simple example. So as I told you that there are Hindus which apply tika and apply molis on their hands, and there are Muslims who wish to have a beard, long beards, and there are Sikh who wish to have a turban on their head. So there are different, these are basically different religious practices that are being followed by different religious communities, right? So the government basically does not interfere in any of the religious communities and ask them to not practice such religious practices. The government basically promotes all the religions and actually does not interfere. It allows them to follow any such religious practices, keeping in mind that it does not harm someone or does not hinder somebody else's interest. They are allowed to practice any such religious practices, and the government does not stop any of them to follow or to stop such religious practices. They basically supports them to promote their culture and to promote their religion. All right. So this is just the one of the steps that have been taken by the government to promote secularism and to have secularism, or to make India a secular state. All right. So the third point is the strategy of intervention. So what do we mean? Just now we studied that the government does not interfere, and now we're studying that there is a strategy of intervention. But sometimes the government has to intervene because the religious practices start to discriminate, start to ill-treat, or basically start to hinder the interest of the other religious communities. Now let's understand how does it happen. So we all know that there was a practice of untouchability that used to be in India for many years. So basically, what is untouchability? The upper caste used to discriminate between the lower caste. They used to ill-treat. They used not to give them equal rights. They used to consider them as lower caste and not give them equal rights. So this is what is untouchability, because they considered them as a lower caste, so they were not given equal rights, right? So this was being practiced in India for several years, and so the government has to intervene and prohibit and ban such practice of untouchability, saying that this practice is basically creating discrimination amongst the upper caste and the lower caste, and not all the religious communities are given equal rights. So this is how sometimes government intervene in order to ensure that all the religious communities and all the members of one religious communities are given equal rights, and they are not being discriminated, or not anyone not being ill-treated by the other members or the other religious communities. So sometimes the government has to intervene in order to prohibit such practices in the country, to ensure that the state is a secular state and secularism is being practiced in the country. So this brings us to the end of the not the chapter, but this was the last topic of this video. So we'll connect in the next video, and by then, thank you so much for joining me on Study Room.